your source for everything paranormal. Para X. The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Merry meet and merry part, bright the cheeks and warm the heart. For tread the circle thrice about, to keep unwelcome spirits out. Bide within the law you must, in perfect love and perfect trust. Mind the threefold laws you should, 3 times bad and 3 times good. These 8 words the read fulfill, and ye harm none, do what ye will.
Welcome to Stirring the Cauldron on the Para X Radio Network. And now, here's your host, Marla Brooks.
Hey, merry meet everybody, and welcome to Stirring the Cauldron. And I've got a really good show tonight, so I think we're going to jump right in. Now, my guest is author Von Braschler, and he's a former faculty member at Omega Institute for Holistic Studies and has led workshops throughout the United States and the United Kingdom. He's also a member of the Theosophical Society and author of several books, including Perfect Timing and Chakra Reading and Color Healing. And he's here today to talk about his latest book, which is called 7 Secrets of Time Travel, Mystic Voyages of the Energy Body. And, we love interaction with the listeners, and, you've got really good questions. And so you're ready, if you're here in chat, go for it. And send us questions or comments in private chat if you can, and we might be able to catch them in the chat room if it doesn't go too fast. And if you're not here in the chat room, come join us at paraxradionetwork.com. Von, welcome.
Hi, Marla. Merry meet.
Yes, merry meet. I think, and talking tonight, there's lots of places people can marry meet now, and time and all that good stuff. So this is really interesting. But the last time you were here, we were talking about your book, Confessions of a Reluctant Ghost Hunter. And this book is about how to break free from the physical world and travel via the energy body. Now, somebody sent me a note in Facebook during the week asking, because I saw the banner, asking if time travel and astral projection are the same thing. So I think that's a good place to begin.
I get that question a lot, Marla, and the answer is yes and no. How's that?
I like
to
that.
Start off the show. How is this? Okay. I mean, the subtitle of the book is kind of suggests that it's Mystic Voyages of the Energy Body. So in that, it's kind of a hint that they're very, very similar, but there's also a hint that it's more than just the astral body. So I go all back. I like to follow the classics. I read things like Yoga Sutras, and I go back to the Eastern spiritual science and the old ways, and they believed in a multiple body, that we had a complex body of like a physical body, a mental body, a causal body, an emotional body, spiritual body. And every one of these bodies has what we like to call chakras or energy centers or energy vortexes, which are not physical things. I know that everyone's probably seen some kind of a Kundalini drawing that shows all of the chakra energy centers neatly lined up in a row up your spine. Mm-hmm. And you think, oh, this one is in the root, the root chakra is at the base of the spine, and so forth and so on. The heart chakra is located near the heart. Yes and no. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is that we're fully charged. We have everything within our grasp. as complex individuals to energize our mental body, to energize our astral body, to energize our causal body, our spiritual body. So to get to the point, I think that what happens is, yes, there's astral projection, there's astral travel, which is fine. There's remote viewing, which is fine. But, akin to those things is what we would call time travel. And time travel is really when you're kind of like sidestepping outside your physical self, and you're bringing your consciousness, your conscious energy with you beyond this moment in time, which only exists because we see this moment in time. It's very, very dependent on what you're actually perceiving with your eyes. So if you're no longer smelling it and touching it and feeling it and sensing it with your, all your physical senses, then there's an additional way of actually of approaching reality, and that would be as an energy body. You would realize your awareness, a greater conscious awareness. So you have conscious perception, which is very, very different. So, I mean, how different is it? I mean, everybody out there's had dreams, right? Mm-hmm. Your dreams, up is down and blue is red, and you can smell colors. And, it's a whole different universe. Right. It's a different universe because we have a different set of awareness. At that level, these are not physical sensations. They're sense of perception you have only in awareness outside the physical body. So I think what happens, and a lot of people have experienced time travel. I mean, I wrote the first book, Perfect Timing, like almost 20 years ago. And people would call me on the radio shows and they would say, I had time slips. I was walking down the street and suddenly it was in another time. And so many people, me included, have had these time slips. Yeah. So I have to say to you, you probably have had a time shift yourself, or you think you might have, or many people who claim they did. And, and it happens all the time. Yeah. So to answer the question, is it like astral travel? It is like astral travel, but you're taking not just your astral or emotional body, you're taking your mental body, you're taking, most importantly, your causal body, and it's like we have to think in like terms of like magic, to create real magic, you have to have at least your mental body, and you have to have your emotional body, and I would say the causal body, if you really want to travel in style. So you see, there are associated with all of these levels of our existence, and all these energy bodies we have, there are parallel universes or realities. There is a causal plane, there is a mental plane, there is an emotional plane or an astral plane, and you can go to these places. Some of them are fun and some are scary as hell, but you can go there, and it's like, and you can go to other times, you can actually step out of time. You'd be walking down the street, as I've done, and you take one more step and suddenly you're in yesteryear, or you're in Tomorrowland, briefly, but you have to be in the right consciousness state. Once again, it goes back to this conscious awareness you get in an altered state. So you have to actually get into an altered state, usually, to experience a time shift. People who have experienced time shifts go through an altered state momentarily. I don't know if that's a long, convoluted answer. Probably is.
Yeah, no, that works. I mean, it makes sense because I know that there are very well-respected physicists that believe in parallel realities and added dimensions and all that. And I've had several guests on, one not too long ago whose topic was waking up in 5D. And over the years, I've had other guests talking about dimensions and stuff. Some people believe, some people scoff at the notion, but you made a very good point when you said that we have a limited range of our five senses, and maybe that's only because we don't know that there are more than 5. I mean, nobody's explained to us that we can do some other things other than, the mundane, right?
I mean, you look at the animal kingdom, and and we don't have the best eyes, we don't have the best hearing. Right. God knows we can't move the fastest. We don't have the best sense of smell, and yet they seem to have an awareness that we don't have. We try to live with our 5 senses, and it's not enough. It's just not enough. I mean, so you look at your dogs and your cats. I know our last show we talked endlessly about our dogs and cats. This might happen again, right? But, dogs and cats, look, I mean, they can communicate telepathically. They're not concerned about yesterday or tomorrow. We say they live in the moment. Well, they live in the moment because they're so confident that yesterday still exists and tomorrow is right here. And they are. The past, the present, and the future are all right here. What's different, and I'm not just blowing smoke here, this is Albert Einstein himself, is actually how we perceive time. This is the present moment because you perceive it as the present moment. It passes slowly or quickly as you perceive it. And so it depends on the witness and who's actually experiencing time. Mm-hmm. I don't experience time the same way you do, and I don't experience every moment the same way. Sometimes they're longer and sometimes they're shorter. Einstein said, well, you're sitting with a pretty girl, and time passes very different than when your hand is on the fire. It's very different. You one moment is very fast and 1 minute is very quick. And it's like, you've been in an accident, maybe a crash on the freeway, or you've been trapped in a fire, and a moment can last forever because you're so keenly aware. You shift into this altered state of awareness where you're super, super alert. You actually shifted into a higher level of consciousness. So yes, these alternate realities do exist. And it's just a paper-thin membrane. The cutting-edge physicists are now talking about how the alternate universes and the parallel worlds and the parallel realities are it's just like folding a map. It's the paper-thin membrane separation between us and them. If you want to call it a dimensional level, sure, absolutely. Peter Ouspensky said, that it was like we lived in a box, and nothing that happened above us or below us. If you live in an apartment building, you can get this. I've lived in an apartment building. You try to imagine the people who live above you and below you, and you can't see them, and you've never seen them, so you don't know what they are. They might be giants. They might look very different from you. They might look exactly like you. You don't know. We only know what we know. We only experience what we experience.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. I like the idea that transcending the physical body offers hope, just not because you want to go there for fun and games and think about, what happened before and want to be at someplace else, but it offers new hope for the treatment, like you say, of illnesses, of emotional problems, of addictions. You said that true healing happens from the inside, with the sick healing themselves. Yes. So let's talk about that benefit, because if anything, that most people will jump at that benefit more than anything else.
Well, you get outside yourself and you can look at yourself. That's one wonderful thing. I think ultimately we do heal ourselves. Yes, people can help you heal. But ultimately, you have to heal yourself. You have to have a desire to live. You have to want to create the antibodies to live. The white blood cells to live. And it's like, if you don't, you won't. So there's this aspect of our causal body which is desire, and if you don't have the desire for something, it's not going to happen. If you have a desire to die, that you can achieve that. If you want to flip it around. But you can get outside yourself and look at yourself. And in workshops, I like to, as this is what I did at the Omega Center that I love so much. And it's like, we got outside of ourselves and we looked at ourselves and we healed ourselves from outside. Because you can get outside your physical body with your mental body, with your your emotional body, and that's enough to heal you. And then you bring your causal body, your spiritual body with you. Then you have a whole lot of you out there. You have a connection to the mental plane. You have a connection to the astral plane. You have a connection to the causal plane, even the spiritual plane. And so you're actually, with, the energy that is it. The chakras exist on every level of your being. So, so there are layers of us, outside of us and within us that are not physical. And yes, they too have chakra energy fields, because just like our consciousness, our chakras are not physical. They are pure energy. And they don't take up any space at all. They really don't reside in your spine. I'm so sorry. They do reside in your spine, but they also reside in 6 other bodies that are known to us. And these are important bodies, and most people need to exercise them. They need to become acquainted with them, because they can take you places. They can take you to the past, the future, to look at yourself and to heal yourself and to understand yourself and others, where you're going and where you've been.
So, basically we are our own time machines, and the goal is to enter, you said, a state of higher or heightened consciousness without physical distraction. And we do that through meditation, correct?
That's true. That's the easiest way to do it. But once you learn to meditate this way, you can literally be walking on the street and do it. And I know lots of people that have done this. They'll get into a state of heightened consciousness just walking down the street. And boom, they're somewhere. They might be in exactly the same place, but in a different time. That's what usually happens. Then again, you could be in a different place as well. That's just as likely, because, time is a great key to unlock almost anything as to when and where.
It's just, I'm sitting here thinking about it, and I'm thinking about walking down the street, and then it's like, so I'm walking down the street in my neighborhood, and maybe that's the street I grew up in. So if I'm walking down that street, I can put myself back into like what I saw when I was a little person walking down that street.
Yeah,
correct?
That's it. Yeah. And then you can actually look at this little girl and study her, I mean, you can get like inside her, but more often you're outside her looking at her. You become a perfect witness, observing her. You can't necessarily interact with her. Remember, you don't have a voice, you don't have any hands, you don't have any feet. You can't comb her hair, or carry her or give her a hug.
Yeah.
But you can send energy to her. You can look at her and study her, and you can understand how you got to where you are, and things that confused you as a child. Kind of, you didn't quite get it. You can connect all the dots. People who like to talk about soul retrieval. This is exactly what this is. You can go back in time, and you can retrieve parts of yourself. Or you can go somewhere else and retrieve parts of yourself. You can visit people and retrieve parts of yourself and put together all the broken pieces. You can understand why people who are sick got sick. What happened. Because we don't usually just get sick physically, we'll get sick mentally or spiritually or emotionally, and then it'll all, that eventually, like a cascading effect, crash down into our dense physical bodies. And then we're sick, and you say, well, I started out, I was spiritually sick, then I was emotionally sick, and now look at me, I'm a mess, So you say, well, okay, well, you got to take all these pills. Well, what's that going to do to your, mental body, your spiritual body? That's the problem.
Well, see, and here's
whole you.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it was really weird because before I contacted you to be on the show, I didn't even think about it. But I was sitting here one night and I was thinking, gee, I wish I could go back to one of the family dinners or one of the Christmas dinners or something, just to see the whole family there. Because, we don't, a lot of times people pass away when we're young and we don't really get to know them. And so, I was sitting there thinking, God, I wish I could do that. Or there used to be a Saturday night poker game every week with the whole family. And, I wish I could just sit there and watch them play poker for a while, just to see that kind of thing. And so, you think, and you're saying that this is possible, which is
I think
wonderful.
So.
Yeah. So
you gotta really want it though. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but when you're thinking about when you're getting nostalgic and you're really, I wish I could see so-and-so one more time, or gee, I didn't get to know that person then, but now I'm an adult and I'd like to see what they were. That really is a strong intent. To be able to do that.
So in writing this book, Seven Secrets of Time Travel, it occurred to me that there were actually groups that could do this. They're shamanic travelers who go back and forth in time. They look at the ancestors. They look to the future, what the future holds, and they bring back insights to their people. It's a great thing. It's a wonderful thing. These are heroes. These are healers. Then you've got like in the East, you've got, mystics and yogis who do this. And among them are the samadhi mystics, the samadhis, will train their young novices to control their dreams. And they would actually say, well, okay, now you program your dream by visualizing where you want to go and what you want to know and what you want to see. And then they go to sleep with that intent, that visualization in their head. Boom, their thoughts directly carry them there. And they come back, with profound insights from having basically time traveled. And they experience what we would call shifts in time and space or timelessness.
Yeah,
so
it's...
I
Go ahead. Finish.
so I do have a book coming out with Inner Traditions. I think it'll be out, I'm not sure, early spring, and maybe sooner. And it's going to be called Time Shifts. And it gives examples of people, myself included, people I know, and some very famous cases of people who have experienced time shifts. And they'll almost always go into some altered state of consciousness. Sometimes it'll be like, let's say, accidental. They didn't meditate, but they had a shift in consciousness as they're walking or in the woods, or the two ladies from England who went to Versailles. And it was incredible because they went to see the gardens. There were hardly anybody there at Versailles. And they decided they go to the small garden, which was Marie Antoinette's garden. And they went to the small garden at Versailles. And lo and behold, there were all kinds of people there. But they were all dressed in period costume. You could have sworn they saw Marie Antoinette. Someone was painting her picture. There were other people walking around playing yard games. And it was incredible. They came back, and lo and behold, they told stories of things they had seen that hadn't happened for many, many years. And so they describe, things like bridges and buildings and people who were in the picture who are long since gone, but they were able to, resurrect from maps and notes and old drawings, paintings that they actually saw a moment in time. And they went back and they couldn't create it again. They couldn't experience it again because they were going back with their analytical mind, with their notepads, and they were going to check it all out. But it doesn't work like that.
No.
That's why you can never explain scientifically, because you cannot go there with a tape recorder and do this.
Right.
It happens on a whole other level. There were these scouts. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. That's all right.
There were these scouts in England, and a lot of stories in England. They love these stories. So this happened in the 50s, as I recall, and it was reported in Smithsonian Magazine, and I think it was 54, 55. Famous story of these young teenage scouts that were sent out to do orienteering. Well, they went to this little village in England, and they were supposed to scout it out with a map, and come back and report, their exercise. And they came, and they went to the building, and they went to the town, and they were just shocked. This was a group of, I think, 4 boys, all I think around 15. And this has been well documented. They went to this little town, and it looked like the Middle Ages. And there were hardly anybody there. It was not a sound, no birds. They heard just one church bell ring once when they entered the town. When they left the town, they heard the church bell chime one more time. They did not see the church. They did not hear any birds. They did not see anyone. The buildings were not painted. The buildings did not have glass windows. It was a scene out of the Middle Ages. They came back and they described what they saw, and the scoutmaster was very upset. He said, I don't think you found the right town. He said, well, we did. They showed him on the map. This is it. He says, no, this is town, but, this is not some old town. This is not a ghost town. This is a thriving town. Well, they kept telling this story, and finally people started checking it out. And these boys actually had seen what it looked like in the Dark Ages, just after the plague, when most everybody in town was dead. The church had not been completed,
right?
And it was exactly what they saw, and there's all kinds of cases like this. It was a case of the grand opening for Charlie Chaplin.
Okay, hold that thought, because we need to go to a break. But you said Charlie Chaplin. Now my ears perked up. So, all right, everybody, we'll be back in 2 minutes after a break, and we're going to hear about Charlie Chaplin. Hang in there.
Stirring the Cauldron will be right back, so don't go away. If you end up with webbed feet, remember, you've been warned.
Hey everyone, it's Marla. If you like tonight's episode of Stirring the Cauldron and the archive podcast as well, take a look at the show's YouTube channel and check out the dozens of shows that are there just waiting to be heard. New shows are added each week, and while you're there, why not subscribe? It's free. And if you click on that tiny little bell icon at the top of the page, you'll be notified when new shows are available. Just go to youtube.com and then type in Stirring the Cauldron Para X, and the link will appear. Just like magic.
Good.
For almost 2 decades, Midnight Syndicate has composed the soundtrack to your darkest nightmares. The imaginations of fans worldwide have been fueled by its gothic, horror, and fantasy symphonic albums. A staple of the haunted house and amusement park industry, for many, the music of Midnight Syndicate is the music of Halloween. Now, Midnight Syndicate will bring your nightmares to life in a spectacle of sound from beyond the grave.
Welcome back to Stirring the Cauldron. Once again, here's your host, Marla Brooks.
And here we are. My guest is Von Braschler. He's talking about his book, 7 Secrets of Time Travel. And before the break, we started with a Charlie Chaplin story. So go for it. I love it.
Okay. Well, there's lots of good Charlie Chaplin stories, but this isn't about his young brides or anything, or his income tax or his political views. This is about his opening, and I think it was in California, and I can't remember the year, like early 20s. Anyways, Charlie Chaplin movie premiere, opening night. Big deal back then. Big deal. Lots of people dressed up, milling around outside the theater, waiting to go indoors. And lots of them notice a very strange woman walking by. she's dressed differently from the rest of them. And she's walking around with something she's holding up to her head and talking into it. And then she just like listens to it, and then she talks into it. I mean, she's either from Star Trek or she's got a cell phone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so well, they don't know what to make of this back then, so they're saying like, oh my gosh, it must have been like a hearing aid, but like there was nobody near her she seemed to be communicating with. What the heck was it all about? So they've talked about this for years. This is one of those long urban legends. What the heck was it? But there were lots of people who observed this and had very similar stories of a woman who seemed to be talking to something she held up to her head. This is about like 1920, 22, something like that. Mm-hmm. So, then there was a guy who one day got run over by a car. I think it was in, good Lord, it was in, I've forgotten this one. I think it was in New York. It might have been Chicago. Anyway, people notice that this guy is like all confused. Like he walks into traffic and he seems scared of the cars. He doesn't seem to understand what it's all about. Doesn't know how to respond to them, He jumps back and then he jumps in the road and he gets hit. And they pull him out, he's got a derby hat, and he's got a handlebar mustache, and he's dressed in clothes that are like, 100 years old. And what the heck's going on, So they go through his pants and there's old coins in his pants and they find the man's dead. They can't figure out who he is, and nobody's reported this old guy missing, this funny dressed guy. And they find it in his nice coat. There's in a pocket, inside pocket, and it has a livery bill for a livery Staples, and it's in a different city. I think it's like in Philadelphia. Yeah, in Philadelphia. And it's like, what the heck, And it's like, and there's a date, it's like, I don't know, like 1858 or something like that. I'm a little off on these, but it's like a long time ago. And so then there's a card that says Dr. So-and-so. Could that be him? Well, the police look in the phone book and, and they find somebody with that kind of name, and it's a Mrs. somebody, and they look it up, and it turns out that it's the widow of a man who has the same name, but his name is Junior. And she said, yes, my husband always told the bizarre story of his father went out one night for a stroll, all dressed up in a suit with his derby hat and his mustache all carefully, waxed. And he went outside for a walk, and he never came back. And he was Dr. So-and-so, Senior. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So that's, it was never that's a very controversial story that I have in the book coming out, Time Shifts. And it's like, some of these are controversial. And, there was a fella who flew over an air station during the war in the UK, and he looks down, and the planes they look different. They don't look the same. They don't have two wings. They have just like one wing. And they're different colors. And the people on the ground are wearing different colored suits, and everything looks. It's the airfield that he's supposed to be at. It sounds like Twilight Zone, right? Mm-hmm. But then he flies back over it, going, I can't believe it, and it's like, the planes look very different. They have just these two wings. They don't have, they're not biplanes. And so he's from the First World War. And so he comes back and he says, I was over the airfield, and I think they have some experimental planes, And they have this secret, cadre of people working at the airfield. They're all wearing blue uniforms. So, this all kind of gets written down in military, hush-hush things, and it's like, man, it's crazy. Years later, indeed. They have these planes at this airfield, and all the uniforms are blue. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it seemed that he saw a glimpse of the future, and then he flew back into the past. You know, it's really curious, the number of people that have had these little slips in time. I mean, I've had them myself.
Yeah, I know people that have had them. I've had a couple of people on the show that have had them. So, you know, it's not uncommon. It just seems a little weird, but it's not uncommon. But I got a question from chat. She says, what about deja vu? Is that a good candidate? Deja vu.
Okay, so I think of deja vu this way. It's like if you've seen... if you remember the past, you've been there. And similarly, if you have a dream that would seem like a precognition dream, and it turns out to be true, you were really there. Yes. So I think that it is possible, you know, to have memories of the past that we've been to very often in our dreams, very often in past lives, but you know, very often we just like sidestep. We take one step to the left and one step to the right, and the next step is like, oh my goodness, 50 years into the future, or 50 years into the past, you know, and then you step right back, you know.
And when people do it inadvertently, that's scary for them.
It is. It's a little jarring. I mean, I had my first when I was 12. And I went on a bus as a boy. My friends all decided it would be fun to go pick berries. Well, I wanted to eat berries. I didn't want to pick any berries. I was the worst berry picker they ever had. But I wanted to ride on this bus because I never rode on the school bus. I always walked to school. And so I rode on the school bus, and I thought, well, that was fun, you know, big yellow bus. And so I went out there, and we sang bus songs, and, you know, and then we got there, and it was a fun place. You could eat all these berries. They didn't yell at you if you know, didn't turn any in. And then they had this swimming hole in the back, you know, it was like a river. And during lunchtime, people would go there, and that's where they spend their, well, I eat a bunch of berries. I just go to the river and just swim until they blew the horn to go home, and I'd go on the bus, you know. That was my routine, a terrible berry picker. But one day I got a stomachache, a terrible stomachache. And the whole side of my stomach was just caving in. It's like I felt like I was going to die. And I thought, this is not right. You know, sometimes you just know it's just not right. It's not going to get any better. So I gotta get somewhere quick. So I go and I ask, you know, the boss if he could drive me home. He said, oh no, we're going to take everybody home at the same time in the afternoon. Can't just take the bus and take you home. You wait. You just sit there quietly. You don't have to work. Just sit there quietly and wait. I asked the bus driver, please take me home. He said, nope, I can't run the bus until it's time to take everybody home. So I looked at I knew that every day going out there, we'd cross these train tracks. We'd drive across the train tracks onto the berry field. And I thought, gosh, these train tracks will lead me right to my house. And it seemed to me that they would. And because there were train tracks in front of my house. And now I wasn't thinking real clear. I was getting to this kind of like, you know, other consciousness, because I was just other state of consciousness, because I was getting very sick. I was just not thinking clearly. And I'm thinking these tracks, there are tracks that lead right in front of my house. Now, this was many miles from my house, and I had no way of knowing that these very train tracks would lead to my house. You know, because there are many train tracks, many switchbacks, and who knows. But I just got on the tracks. I said, this will just follow the tracks and take me home. And I remember my friends couldn't believe I was going. So I looked back just as I rounded the bend, last time to see him before I rounded the bend, and I waved, and I turned around, and the next thing I knew, boing, I'm in front of my house. And I step off the tracks. I go in the house, and it's a good thing because my appendix had burst. I just, you know, managed to live, but I got home instantly. But when I got home, you know, it was like, you know, it's like no time had elapsed. I was just instantly home, and I couldn't figure it out. I didn't think about it a lot, I guess, because sometimes these things are so odd when they happen to you. You don't want to talk about them because you sound kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't talk about it, you know. And I think it was a year or two later, I was playing in the backyard one summer, and I was looking up at the sun and the light, and I looked past the yard into the front, and I flashed back to that summer day when I came back from the berry field and stepped off the tracks, except now I realized there were no tracks. There were no train tracks. And never were any train tracks. There was a train track one end of town, which was Bayside, and another side, which was Riverside. We lived in the middle where there was no bay and no river, no trains. How on earth did this happen? So a year later, we moved north of town about 6 miles, and where we lived, a train track went right in front of our house. So, you know, and then I had these kind of shifts when I lived in Oregon. I worked for the newspaper, and I was like, I don't know, like early 30s. I'd be walking down the street, and then I couldn't remember how I got to the other side, but the town looked very, very different in the middle, you know. And then I remember once going in to develop film in the darkroom, and it's like, you know, I suddenly seemed like I blacked out, and it's like I woke up, and it's like I didn't know how much time had expired. You know, the film was way overexposed. I don't know how long I was gone. When you time shift, you don't know how long or how briefly you're gone, because time is very different there. You really don't know. You know, you could be gone a long time. Typically, you're gone a long time, but it seems like a short time. You know, I mean, you're gone a short time, but it seems like a long time. You know, sometimes it's exactly the opposite. You know, in this case, you know, I was there, but there was no building there. There was no car lot in front of us. You know, there was no pear tree to the side of us. So years later, I come back, and that's exactly the way it looked. No building there, no car lot, So, you know, I think it's very easy. You know, what holds us fixed in time is simply our perception on this moment in time. There are many moments in time that are equal, and they're all present, they're all now. The time, everything is immediate. You know, the past is happening right now. The future is happening right now. What locks us into this moment we call now is our perception of it. If you shift your perception to another now, you experience another now.
And that's what people are going to find in the book. I mean, there's the hows, there's the whys, there are time shift exercises that show the way to escape the limitations of physical time and space, to enter a world of energy and spirit. And, you know, some of them are really, well, they're all good, but some of them are really interesting and jumped out at me more than, you know, I got to try that one. But, you know, it deals with meditation. It's dealing with a higher consciousness. I mean, and the title of the book.
This is Eastern spiritual science meets physics, I think. I mean, this is my orientation. I realized a while ago when I said, gosh, is anybody but me interested in time? It turns out lots of people are interested in time. But you got these two camps. You have you have those that look at it like, you know, spiritual science, you know, or psychism. Then you have the people that look at it scientifically, and it's like, well, why not look at it from both ends and see if they meet? And some of the exercises might seem odd, but I use them every day, you know. And they do require, like all magic, a lot of emotional and mental energy, you know, and that you can actually do 3 hours of work in like less than an hour if you want, but you can't always stretch and condense time that easily. You can't do it infinitely, and you can't do it for anybody but yourself. I can't make anyone but me experience time the way I do. Well, yeah, we could have a group moment. You know, it's called group thought. Yes. I have a book coming out on manifesting, and there is group thought, and if you're all attuned and you all shift your consciousness, you can all shift to a different time in a different place. It is true. You could have, I guess you'd call this a guided meditation or a group meditation.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, we all experience time individually.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's so much to learn. I mean, and just for people to know, and hopefully they'll get the book and read it, but there are 7 secrets, and you go one down the line, and that's what the book is all about. You talk about human energy fields. You talk about the limited range of the 5 senses. The exercise that I really liked was catching the wind, for example, which is
catching the wind. Yes, I love that one.
And we don't have enough time to get into that, but we're talking about
that's a Native American exercise.
You can tell. You really can.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, there. Even if you don't think you can do it, I mean, and you say that everybody can, and maybe some people shouldn't, and maybe that's the ones that say they can't. So that might be better. But
well, we all experience truth in our own time, in our own way. So some people will be ready for it, and some people won't. Some people are just eager to go. And some of the exercises just seem odd until you try them. But what I've noticed is that when people try them, you can give them all the stories and all the what, where, and why, and the EMC squared and all that. And it doesn't mean a darn thing until they experience it themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the way of most things. You can hear about it forever, but you don't really know it until you've been in those shoes and done it. Yeah. But I mean, the book is really comprehensive in explaining, like I said, certain things like the meditations and the high meditation as opposed to just, the light meditation and the energy fields and the exercises and everything. So, I mean, we've been kind of talking about what it is and what we can do and all that. And the other thing that we can do, we're talking about healing. You can all not only do self-healing for ourselves, but we can go back in time and assist other people too. And I think that's important.
Yeah. You can go back and heal the planet for that matter, And it's like, I mean, I guess I do wrestle with the ethics of this, but it's like, it's your world. Mm-hmm. These are your people, I mean, you think of the shaman. The shaman carries the people on his back. I say his because they're almost always men, right? Now we have women shamans, but traditionally. And so the thing was, you would go back in time and talk to the ancestors. You go into the future and see what it's going to be like. And you do this for the good of the people, not to mess with time, but to guide them. And it's called insight, so you just go back as a perfect witness to what will be or what has been. Yeah. And then you try to interpret things because we tend to go through everything full speed emotionally as we live them.
Yeah.
And then you go back as a witness and you look at it and say, oh my gosh, how did we get this so wrong?
Yeah. It's a whole new perspective when you do that. But as with physical time, it goes by too quickly. So we've got to start wrapping up for tonight. But I know it just poof, gone. It really, I'm surprised how fast it went, really, and usually I'm not. But so where can people find you and your books?
Well, I'm like everybody else on the earth now. I'm on Amazon, so it's where you find the books because everything else is closed. I won't say everything, but they're in bookstores, and the book is available through Inner Tradition on the Destiny imprint, and my new book coming out in a few months will be on the Destiny, also on time shifts. So you can get it online or through Inner Tradition. You can go to them and they'll send you the book. And if you want, you can arrange to have it sent to me to sign. I don't care. Okay. So, might misspell my name, but, yeah.
And people can also find you on Facebook. Yes?
Yeah, V. Braschler. Facebook, V. Braschler, yeah. So, or Von Braschler, I guess it is. I changed it. So, yeah, absolutely. And I have a little page, their author's page on Amazon. I'll try to keep it up updated because I have a lot of new books coming out.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are on thought forms. And I'm going to have 2 come out next year, and I think 5 come out the next year. And it's I've been working, and now they're all just coming together.
Good.
But I think this thing about time, we're to a point in our society where consciousness is shifting, and people are just going to click into another gear here.
Yeah. Well, we're going to click in here and get the hook in a second. So find him on Facebook, find him on Amazon. Thank you so much, Vaughn. Come back with the next book. Let me know when it's out, and we'll bring you back. And anytime. And thank you for all listening. All of you for listening. And until next time, everybody, blessed be and merry meet again. Good night.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Stirring the Cauldron with Marla Brooks. Please join us again next week at the same time for another great guest and more cauldron stirring. Any rebroadcast or other use of this program without explicit permission is strictly prohibited. Copyright 2024. The Mysterioso March by Kevin MacLeod is licensed through Incompetech.com.